Welcome to the Surviving Business Podcast, where we go beyond the strategy of doing business and explore the mindset of the most successful leaders of today. Here are your hosts, Shane Anderson and Iva Locke.
Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to Surviving Business. This is the podcast where myself and my colleague Iva go through a lot of the things that we need in today's day and age on not only how to survive, but also to thrive, especially in today's world. It is with my great honor to introduce my co-host for tonight. This man has been a master coach for the Tony Robbins Business Platinum Group. That is where I actually met him. Since that time, we've done many businesses together around the world. We have stayed very close friends. We've done major events together. We've done speaking gigs together. And we thought in today's day and age, what a better time to get together and share some of our knowledge and some of the knowledge of some of the biggest business leaders on the planet in how to survive business. It is my great pleasure to introduce my co-host, Mr. Iva Locke. How are you, sir?
Very well. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Shane. You have too many kind words there. Too many kind words. Absolutely. Well, you know, Shane, it reminds me of when we met, came from the Platinum partner group and everything else from Tony Robbins, and bringing you on board, an excitable man, and you just finished Business Mastery, and we went off, and we took one panel beating shop to become 26 panel beating shops in about 9 months. Incredible. And then, of course, you then went off and became a great online marketer. And, we've been such good buddies through this time, and we've been through so much together. As they say, we've been in the trenches, we've been hit, but we know how to come back. So, Shane, it's just such a privilege and an honor to be with you tonight, and to be able to share this broadcast with you, and to be able to share this discussion with you as well.
Thanks, mate.
From now on, though, I want to introduce our special guest. And this man, actually, when he came on, he actually came to me as a client. And the first thing that he said to me was, Iva, I'm going to help you a hell of a lot. And I went, okay, I'm not quite sure where this is going to go, ultimately. And anyway, after many conversations, and sometimes extended conversations, sometimes we'd have to talk for 30 minutes and land up speaking for 90 minutes, ultimately, or 2 hours. This man is so...
Charged him. Did you charge him?
Charged him as well, yeah. This man's got such a giving heart, but, he was a person that ultimately allowed me and allowed me to figure out that I'd open up my voice chakra. And what a lot of people don't know at the time was that I was kind of plateauing in my coaching, wondering, am I really adding value? What more value can I have? And they always say when the student's ready, the teachers will come. Well, this teacher came in a big way. Spent a lot of time with Rafael at his retreat in Thailand, and it's a wonderful experience. So listen to everything Rafael has to say today, because it's incredibly powerful. So Rafael, I'm just going to turn you on your camera and welcome, my friend. It's so great that you've given up your time. So welcome to be here today. So thank you very much, ultimately.
Thank you. My pleasure. Hello, everyone.
Absolutely.
Hey, Rafael. Lovely to have you, my man. You're a fellow platinum member as well of Tony. So we're kind of brothers, even though we've never met.
That's right. We're family. We're family from all around the world. Yes.
Lovely to see you, mate. And look, welcome tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time out to come on here and share your wisdoms with me and Iva and the rest of everybody else. We've got a big crowd coming in. We've got people in from everywhere, which is great. A lot of people watching us live on Facebook as well. And of course, the podcast series that we're here for, and the question that we ask all of our guests is, how do you survive business? And it's never been more evident in today's world. Could you just give us a little background about where you are currently and what is actually happening in your part of the world and how you're actually surviving business over there?
Sure, happy to. These are interesting times that we're in. So I'm in Thailand on a little island called Koh Phangan, which is usually a highly touristic place, but I'll give you a view of our beach. It's pretty much desolate. And so I'm just at home here in our little eco luxury retreat center. And I spend a lot of time in self-isolation, social distancing, because it's what allows me to thrive. It's what allows me to clear my mind.
Mm.
And this is where I get my greatest inspiration, my creativity, my intuition is how it flashes. And this is something I'd love to share with you guys, how to access that.
Fascinating. And, I often sort of sit back and we talk, I have a saying in my business, it's the idiot on your shoulder, but it's the same thing. It's that constant chatter in your mind and it seems to be consistently based around the fact of trying to keep you in its world alive or safe. So it's constantly forcing fear. What happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? And a lot of people just lose that facet of it's not supposed to be listened to all of the time, right? And they lose that way. So that isolation must give you a great chance to really capture that.
It sure does. It sure does. And what it does is it allows me to know the difference between a fear and an afraid, because there's a slight difference. Our bodies can be afraid and our minds can become fearful. So our minds can generate fear. And it's important for me to know the difference, because if I'm operating from an afraid, I mean, there's an existential danger, something that can actually hurt me. I'm going to operate differently than if I have a fear that's created by my ideas, by my thoughts, by something like a number in my business or money. I should be able to tell the difference. And the thing is that our bodies, sometimes they can't tell the difference. So our bodies can go into an afraid response, and it'll throw us off balance. And I'll give you a very simple, quick way to figure out how to do it. Imagine you're walking home at night you're outside your house, and it's not very well lit, and suddenly you see a snake and in your way. And this body will just leap out of the way instantly. There's no thought. Right. It jumps out of danger. And then maybe I'll turn my light on and look at it, and it's a coiled up hose from the garden.
Yeah.
Right. So then I can just laugh and I can go home, and I felt afraid, but there was no fear.
Yeah. I understand.
The other option is to go home and to stay shaking in my room, afraid of snakes, and then call an exterminator and freak out because I think they're snakes. And there was never a snake.
Yeah.
So the fear was a mental projection. And this is really important to understand, because we're born, believe it or not, with zero fears. We have no fears. We're born in thinking, feeling bodies, baby bodies, of course. And we learn to have fears. We learn all of our fears. And it's important to know what these fears are, because some fears are healthy fears. Like I have an unapologetically healthy fear of being in a car with someone that's driving, and they're driving like a mad person, or they're drunk or inebriated. Why would I want to stop that fear? I'm going to use that fear to get that person to stop and get myself out of that car, right? But then it turns out that we also might have fears around imaginary things like numbers, around money. Now, money is a real thing. It affects our lives, but it's a mental concept.
Right.
So it's important to know the difference. And the reason for me and how it applies to this is that all living things have three modes. We have survival mode, we have living mode, and we have thriving mode. And we need to know how to transition smoothly. Think of having three gears that you can shift up and down through. And it's important to know how they work. So, simple example. If you take a seed and you drop it somewhere in some soil, that seed will sprout. And while it's sprouting, it's in survival mode. It has a limited number of resources, and in a limited amount of time, the roots need to dig down, find nutrients, find water. The shoot needs to come up and find sun, right? And if it lands in the right place, it passes survival mode, and now it starts living. And when it's living, it's growing, it's shooting, it's branching, it's creating leaves. Then it's going to reach a certain size. It's going to reach a certain level of maturity. And if it has the right resources, it's going to start thriving. And that's what flowers are. That's what fruits are. It's a living form. It's a life form that's now thriving. Now, there might be a drought, there might be a storm, and it's going to have to switch into survival mode. It might need to drop its leaves. It might need to start over again. It might get knocked over. It'll need to grow up again, right? And we humans, we have the three modes as well. When we're born necessarily in survival mode. we need someone to take care of us. We need someone to feed us. We need someone to hold us and nurture us and teach us what we need. And this usually lasts the first 7 years of our lives, believe it or not. When a human child reaches about age 8, and we've been raised properly, we have a certain level of independence and we start living. And it gives us 7 years to learn how to shoot up. And then we reach puberty, which is time when we can produce, reproduce, create, procreate. And this is when we have the capacity to start thriving. Our nervous system develops as such, right? So I'm a biologist. My background is in human health and wellness, and I study life and how it thrives, especially how we humans thrive. So in the development of our brains, our nervous system, it branches out. It grows greater and greater branches over time. So imagine the first 7 years of your life. If you have a life where you're in survival mode, but you're raised with very few fears. You get scared now and then. There's things that are frightening, but for the most part, you're raised well. You'll then make it to your living mode, which will be the next 7 years of your life. And if that comes out smoothly, you'll make it to thriving mode. And the odds are that you'll have a pretty good chance at life. The thing is that when we're little, well, I personally, and most people that I know, we have experiences where our heads, our minds start to fill with fears. And they're not existential fears. They're not fears like a lion is going to eat you, at least not where I grew up, not in a city or in most places. In some parts of the world, people have those fears. But most modern humans, we don't have to worry about that. So we have fears, and we have fears around survival, around money, around food, around friendship, and around all sorts of things. And then if these don't get resolved, we carry them into our living mode, where we have other fears that accumulate, and then we make it to thriving mode, and we're physically ready to thrive, but psychologically, we might not be ready. So when that happens, situations like this, where things get more intense, things are more extreme, they're beautiful moments to go in and explore our minds. If you have a moment where you can just go in, you can go in and look at your fears and see if those fears are real, if they're because of a real afraid. Are you actually in danger? Or you're just in danger of losing some money, or your business might go down, and then you can restart again. Right? There's going to be programs, there's going to be support, you're going to have friends. One thing is to be on a ship that's sinking in the middle of the ocean. Another thing is to have your life is okay. You have enough food and resources to last out the next few months, but you might lose some money, and you might lose a lot of money. You might lose millions of dollars, but they're ideas, they're thoughts. So what I've learned is that the easiest way to identify a fear from an afraid, and the easiest way to be able to shift gears, is we need to be able to learn how to stop and reboot our minds. When we can stop and reboot our minds, anything that's an imaginary fear, anything that is a mentally projected fear, will be turned off instantly. Then our minds will come back on again, and the fear will come back. But you'll have a knowing. You'll have a knowing in your body that, oh, my mind is creating this. Not my body is afraid because a tiger is sneaking up on me and I'm going to get eaten, or a tsunami is crashing and I'm about to get hurt. But is it a real physical existential fear, or is it a psychological afraid? Because they're two different. I don't want my body to go into a fear response, and then my immune system goes down and I start stressing and I can't think properly. I want to know that my body is safe. I'm safe. I'm in no actual danger right here, right now. I look around, nothing's trying to eat me or kill me. Okay. My business is in danger. Oh, okay. Well, that's a different situation. So now which mindset am I going to use? Do I need to go into survival mode? Right? Do I need to be in first gear, second gear, or third gear? Do I need to be in reverse? Do I need to put in 4x4, right? I'm stuck in the mud. I need to go into 4-wheel drive type of thing, right? So these are things that I can start navigating through what's going on, right? So I have a program called Stop and Reboot Your Mind, which is a 1 hour long program. It's free for everyone. You'll have the link to it, and it's a 1 hour program to learn how to do it.
Yeah,
and
right.
That's so awesome, Raf. So awesome.
Yeah, and it's free. I've made it free for everyone because it's one of those things where I think everybody should be able to learn how to do that. And the reason we need to learn how to do that is because, believe it or not, our bodies are wired kind of like this two-way radio, like a walkie-talkie. If you've ever played with one, you know that if the battery's charged, the antenna's nice and straight, it's on and in scan mode, it's going to receive information from all around. But what happens the moment I press the talk button?
It shuts that down, doesn't it?
It shuts it down. It's no longer able to receive. So what I've discovered is that our bodies are wired this way. And when we're thinking, every thought Every fear, every desire that we're having is like pressing a button, a talk button on the walkie-talkie. And then we're not receiving the information that's coming in from the outside. And our minds, our intellect, are at best 10% of the intelligence of our body. Our body has other intelligences that evolved over, well, there's been life on this planet for almost 3 billion years. So how to access that? Because we have this built-in ability to have creative flashes. We all have creative flashes every once in a while. We all have moments of love. We all have sparks, flashes of intuition. And for most of us, they happen randomly. We're not exactly sure when they happen. And I learned to tune into this when I was a kid. And I dedicated my life to studying myself and figuring out where do these flashes come from? And what I've discovered is that my creativity, my capacity to love, my intuition, they're built into my body. And if I take care of my body and I give it the best food and the best rest and good stretching and good exercise, that the flashes happen more often. And if I treat it poorly and I give it junk food and I poison it and I overstress it and it doesn't sleep enough, then those flashes happen less often. So what I've learned to do is, and any one of you can do this, because you just feel it. You basically tune into, what does your body need to eat? How do you need to sleep? How do you need to rest? How do you need to think? How do you need to feel in order to be as open to having creative flashes, as open to having intuitive flashes? And these require a certain amount of social distancing. We need to kind of separate us. We need to stop pressing the talk button, stop trying to reach out and just tune into ourselves.
Do you feel that that language and communication that we have, because most of the people that are on this call here are speaking English, but this goes for any language that is their primary source of language, that we have learnt to communicate, and that communication has now become such what we perceive as a vital component, that we're constantly talking and never listening. So we never give ourselves that moment of silence, just pure silence. And I know even when I go into a meditational state, just the period of the meditation alone, just to have complete silence without noise, because obviously the universe doesn't speak English. So we're just like chattering away in sounds that we all can hear, but we're not actually tuning into the bigger picture, right? Do you actually find that silence is one of the components to actually help you drift in and out? I mean, would you expand a little bit on, because even when we're talking about the 3 gears, and we've spoken about this before when we speak about business, the business goes through the exact same thing: survive, living, and thriving. It's the same format as far as a business being able to drift in and out. Sometimes, especially in today's world, people might drift out of the thrive and go all the way back to survival mode. But if that's necessary, then that's great. If the business is no longer functioning, just get rid of it to get rid of that stress. That the business itself is not part of your identity. It's not part of your ego. You just got to drop it. How do you find that, Rafael, as far as people getting identified to their business and being able to break away from that?
For me, it's essential to be able to pause, stop, reboot my mind, and just experience a moment of silence, even if it's just for a few seconds every once in a while. It's kind of like, you've got the whiteboard or the chalkboard all filled with notes and you wipe it clear. Or you have your smart device, your laptop, your computer, and you have all the windows open and you have all these apps running and it starts to get buggy. So it's really valuable to be able to close windows, shut down some apps, and just do a reboot, just do a restart. Because our minds are going to need a break and they work better. I have more mind power when I can shut down unnecessary thoughts. They're going to come back, but I can prioritize them. So there's ways of learning how to take a breath. I explain that in my program. And you can just pause your mind, because the most important thing to understand, and this is how not to get identified as an ego to anything, to be able to use an ego as a way of being able to communicate with other people and to run a business is a form of ego. It's an identification to a concept, to an idea. It works really well in the corporate world because it allows us to channel millions, billions of dollars and be isolated from it. My ego, my corporation, my corporate persona, my fictitious persona is channeling all this money, and it isolates me. It protects me as an individual.
Right.
So I want to be able to stop my mind. And what most people, amazingly enough, most people, we miss this. I miss this for such a huge part of my life, is that we're so identified to the noise, to the sounds, to the pictures, to the sound, the voices between our ears and the pictures behind our eyes of how we see the world, that we forget that we are not those pictures, that we're actually thinking, feeling bodies with minds. And those minds can be on and those minds can be off. And those minds, when they're on, can be highly organized, clear, sharp, precise. They know how to recognize patterns of abundance. They know how to implement these things, or the mind can be chaotic. And most of us are somewhere between a mind that's just chaotic and random and just jumping around like, I don't know, just never fixed in any place. And then those of us that have learned how to take massive action, focus ourselves. But it uses up bandwidth that prevents us from being intuitive and creative. So it's tremendously valuable for me to first work on having a mind that can take action, that can focus, that can look at numbers, that I can know my numbers. What are the numbers that I need to survive? Below those numbers, then I know that game over. But if I'm at the line of survival or above, I don't need to stress about it because I'm in survival mode and I can survive. Or what are the moments? Where's the line where I'm living? Or when can I start living a more abundant life because I'm thriving? If I know my numbers and I can stop and reboot my mind, now I can come with total bandwidth of my mind power. I can come with full creativity and full intuition and sort of feel my way through life as an intuitive business person, as an intuitive entrepreneur, with a mind that can think and can crunch the numbers and know where I need to cut back and know when I need to talk to the bank or whatever, right? I need to, I can know what to do because I can stop the noise. And then when it starts up again, then I'll know whatever is my highest priority. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I learned that I just would never have imagined it, and it's thanks, actually, I have to give credit to Robert Kiyosaki, so his Rich Dad, Poor Dad books. I read this statement many years ago that said that money does not take away your fears. It just hides them and it covers them up. And I was living a very fearless life, and I had money, I had everything, and I was doing really well. And I thought, I wonder if I have any fears that are hidden there. How am I going to expose them? So I put myself into an intentional crash. I sold everything that I had, knowing, of course, that I could rebuild. And I went down to zero, below zero, actually. And as I was going down, I found all these fears that were hidden, fears about numbers. And as I did, I would breathe and I would notice that they're just things I picked up from my environment, from my parents when they were going through some, financial stressful thing, or something I pick up from the news. And that I personally really didn't have that many fears because I trust myself. I know myself and I know that I can step up. Now, not everyone is in that situation, but anyone who is in a position where, if you really had to start from zero, you could again, then panic isn't necessary. Actually, panic never helps, but knowing where you are, knowing what your numbers are, knowing that you can just shut this machine that can go crazy. Our minds are kind of like a robotic machine that just repeats things. Learning how to let that cool off and then let it restart is of tremendous value, because that's when you tune into your own inner wealth, your own capacity to generate some form of abundance, which all life on this planet has. It's a property of life. We all have an innate ability to generate abundance.
Absolutely. So Raf, so much great clarity around that. One of the things that really comes to mind at the moment is that, there's a couple of things happening right now to a lot of people. They probably will be feeling a lot of overwhelm with all the amount of information that's coming at them at the moment, through the media, through everything that they're seeing at the moment. Okay. So I see that as one thing, is about all this overwhelm that they're experiencing now. But I do have another question after this, but I think let's address what this overwhelm, and how would you suggest that people actually, get rid of some of this overwhelm that they're in at the moment?
That's a great question, Ivor. And I actually have a little unit on that in the Stop and Reboot Your Mind program, which is free for all you guys to access. But I'll go over it really quickly. There's two types of overwhelm. There's a physical overwhelm that our bodies can have, and then there's a mental, psychological overwhelm. And they're tied together because we're a mind body. We're not really separate. And so the first thing is that a lot of us just don't take time to breathe properly. So the oxygen levels aren't where they're supposed to be, and that affects the pH of our blood, and then that puts us into fight or flight mode. So just not breathing properly is enough to put us into overwhelm. The other thing is that we're easily dehydrated, and we can get thirsty. We can be a little bit dehydrated before we're thirsty. And when our water levels go down, it's like every one of our batteries, every one of our cells in our body, about 50 trillion cells, they're like these little living batteries. And if the water level goes down, they start to short out a little bit, and our body goes into overwhelm. So a lot of times, just take a breath and drink a glass of water, and that's huge. That'll take care of a lot of overwhelm. And then the next step is that our blood sugar levels, if we maintain them nice and steady, it's different than if we're having these spikes. I mean, think of the next time you're flying an airplane, when all the travel bans stop and you get on an airplane. Would you want to be on an airplane where the fuel pump is like going up and down, up and down, up and down? Right? You want nice, steady blood sugar levels. So there's ways of eating protein-rich foods. If I eat a handful of protein-rich foods every hour and a half to 2.5 hours, that guarantees steady blood sugar levels. And when I'm at steady blood sugar levels, I'm hydrated and I'm breathing properly, 90% of all of my anxiety, fear, stress is not present. Because even if I have a little psychological fear that, wow, I might lose my business, I might lose millions, or I might lose the last $10 that I have, the body will start to freak out. So sometimes all you need is just some nice deep breaths of air, drink some water, eat a handful of nuts, a little piece of cheese, a power bar, something, right? And you'll see how that, so those are the physiological. Then we have a couple of psychological components. Something that isn't well known is that our minds, an hour before going to sleep and an hour after waking up, we go through this state of we're very open to outside influences. We're going through like a state of hypnosis. And during that time, so an hour before going to sleep and an hour after waking up, you want to avoid arguments, fights, watching the news, watching violence, like going to bed after watching a violent movie, or waking up and the first thing you do is to see what's happening in the news and everybody's panicking. That will psychologically put you into an overwhelm. That will psychologically put us into fight or flight mode. So by maintaining the body well breathed, well hydrated, nice steady blood sugar levels, and then understanding that our mind, sometimes it's more open to the challenges of the world. Like after breakfast, bring it on.
Yeah.
After lunch, bring it on. But if I know that I have an important meeting, a call, there's an emergency, the first thing I do is drink a glass of water, grab a power bar, eat a snack, and that will give me steady blood sugar levels, right? That'll get this body feeling good. Now my body is ready to thrive.
Yeah.
If I'm dehydrated, completely overwhelmed with information, low blood sugars, now the body's going into survival mode, the mind's going into survival mode. It can start to spiral out of control. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment you're saying very much that the mind is connected to the input that you're putting into your body, and if you're dehydrated and you're not actually getting your blood sugar levels up correctly, that could put you into overwhelm. Now, could overwhelm also come from actually too much information that you're actually putting into your brain as well, ultimately? So, people are watching news continuously, and as you watch the news continuously, that's kind of repatterning into your brain, because everybody's afraid of what's actually happening at the moment.
That's right. That's happening. And our mind has a critical filter that allows to bounce things off. But if on top of that, not only are we overwhelming it with information, but on top of that, our bodies aren't strong, aren't hydrated and blood sugar and well breathed, that critical filter opens up even more. So I know that the first thing to do when I start to feel overwhelmed is take a breath, drink water, even if I'm not thirsty, eat something, even if I'm not hungry. And in 10 minutes, at least I know the body is stable. Then as far as the mind is concerned, I want to be able to shut it down. So if any of you are in overwhelm right now, when we get past after this quote, if you go to my program, There's 3 breathing exercises. Do breathing exercise number 3. You're gonna need a place to lie down. And breathing exercise number 3 will just do a full stop reboot to your mind. And you'll see what it's like to just be relaxed, mind off, and it'll last anywhere from 30 seconds to 30 minutes. Be off, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can recognize when your mind is going into overwhelm, it feels slightly different than when your body's going into overwhelm. So try to control as many of the variables as possible. And then, of course, something overwhelming might happen. But,
yes,
but at least you've done your best to prepare yourself, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I've got one other question, though, and I'm going to open this up as well for anybody else that has any questions a little bit later. So get your questions ready while I ask this one question of Rafael right now. At the moment, we're obviously moving into this phase where all of us are now more connected than anything else. And if we stay in this phase for a very long time, so we stayed in this phase for the next 30 days or the next 60 days, and we plugged in constantly, what do you think that's going to happen with society if we stay plugged in? Because we're going to be working virtually so much. Is that going to be what's going to be the risk of us being so connected at the moment?
I would say that the only risk is the risk of any smart device that doesn't get turned off. If I don't turn off this amazing phone at least once every day or every 2 days, it starts to get buggy. So it's really good to be able to unplug yourself. Give yourself some time, especially if you're just sitting and you're working virtually. It's really valuable to go and jump up and down, go for a swim, take a shower every once in a while, just walk around your house. Get some activity in our bodies, because our bodies evolved to be active in the world. It's only in modern times that we can sit at a desk with a computer. Otherwise, we had to go out. We had to hunt. We're hunter-gatherers. And we like to live in groups. We can live in isolation, but we're also herd animals, and we like to be with others. It's nice that we can connect socially. I live in a little remote island, and I'm connected with everyone I want to be connected with. Everyone wants to be connected with me. It's easy. But it's also good to just turn it off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think we're going to be in this situation. We should be ready to be in this situation for another 2 to 3 months. That's the potential of how far it could go. So why not take the time to fine tune ourselves and explore our fears, see if they're real fears or not, and just take a moment to take a breath.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that you said earlier, you brought all of your cash flow down to zero, and there were some fears that you experienced along the way. Okay, obviously not to get in too much detail about the exact fear and about where they came from, but was there anything that you see as a consistent basis that kind of comes up throughout all the people that you work with as being a consistent fear that comes up?
Yes. Consistent fears around money. There's a couple of things to understand. We're born without a mind. We're born with brains, of course, and with all our body parts, but our mind starts to grow with us as we come out. As we grow, our minds grow, and we imprint what I'm going to call a script for money. And that script for money we imprint from our surroundings, from our society, and from how we're raised. So there's going to be a low value, the lowest value of money that we can comfortably be with before we start freaking out. And then there's going to be a higher value of how high up we go before we start sabotaging ourselves. And examples of that you see with all sorts of celebrities and athletes that come from inner cities or from areas where they were raised in lower income levels. And then suddenly they start making millions, and a lot of times they sabotage themselves in one way or another. So it's really interesting exercise to just take a time and just sit down and just write down some numbers. What's the lowest amount of money you've ever been able to go with consistently without any fear, without any really freaking out? And then what's the most amount of money that you've ever had before you started losing money or sabotaging or starting to feel uncomfortable? In my case, I've been around money most of my life, so I've had very few fears about having money. I would wake up in terror because my bank account didn't have the number that I thought I needed to have.
Sure.
And this was controlling my life. It was making me make decisions about what I was going to do that were based out of fear that weren't real, because the numbers went down lower and lower and lower and lower. And I'll tell you, when I got down to my last $2, for a year and a half, my partner and I, my wife and I, we didn't know when we would have money to pay rent or food. And we could get jobs. We chose to actually stick it out to see what was happening. I was terrified that, I don't know, somehow I had this idea that I would die if I didn't have money.
Well, we know that didn't happen. We didn't know that didn't happen ultimately.
But I had to go down to zero. I literally had to go down to zero. I had to watch this go down. And for her, it was the opposite. She was born in the jungles between Thailand and Cambodia, had zero fear about not having money. But as soon as we started making money, she would just freak out because we had money. She didn't know what to do with it. She wanted to give it away. She wanted to it would freak her out. So we're going to have certain rich thoughts and poor thoughts. Same like the Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad thing. It's really valuable to just take time and just write down, what are your rich thoughts? What are the thoughts that you have about affluence? And what are the thoughts you have about scarcity? What scares you? What makes you think poorly? And map these thoughts out, because ultimately your mind is the collection of your thoughts.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's the operating system. So if your operating system is full of apps and programs and bugs, and we have these mental viruses, these thoughts that never stop, and they're fear-based, well, that's going to interfere with our lives. So this is where it's useful to just take a moment and unplug that mind and just sit quietly and just relax for a second, or go for a swim, or go for a run. Right? Yeah. Jump up and down, hit a pillow. If you're angry or afraid, kick a pillow. If you don't have a boxing bag, and just hit it, or bite a towel and scream into it. And you'll see how cathartic it'll be to release that.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
we all have these fears in one way.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple of questions here, and I'm going to just unmute the guys as they come through, so that they can ask the question. So, Asher, you had a question, my friend. Ask your question to Raf, no problem.
Hey, Raf, and Ivor and Shane, I just want to say firstly, thank you. This has been amazing. I've been on both of these sessions that you've run now. So, really appreciate it. My question, Raf, is around working out that number. Is that part of that program that you're going to be giving to us?
That number, no, I don't have that in that program. I'm putting together a program for that, and I'm going to make it available.
Okay. Just well, because thinking about what you were saying just at the end there, I can see that both my wife and I have different numbers, and I think that's an area where we probably clash a little bit because we've got different numbers. So, like when as you were talking about, it's really piqued my interest, because I realized that if I could understand what those two numbers are for myself, because I don't obviously know what those numbers are, but if I could understand what the number is for myself and also for my wife, we can obviously then become more aligned, so that can then help us also achieve what we want to achieve in life. So, I guess it's not really a question, but it's a really good insight into ourselves. So thank you for sort of opening that up to us. And I look forward to seeing your course around working out what that number is, because I know, that's definitely something that's probably an issue for me and my wife to work on.
That's a really good question. If I may quickly answer that, I just worked with a family, and there was the father, the mother, and the daughter. So they all live in the same home. They all live with the same budget. They were going through all sorts of challenging things, and the daughter was thriving. The father was living, and the mother was in survival mode. And wow. This was throwing them all off, because they just didn't know how to interact, because one's in thriving mode. It's a 16-year-old girl who's drawing and painting. She has all her needs that are met. Then the father, well, as far as he was concerned, they were okay, because they had enough to pay the bills, and they didn't have extra, but they weren't in survival mode. And the mother had another number in her head, which was so much higher, that she was freaked out all the time. And their balance was all getting thrown out. And then when they all came together and looked at it, they realized that they're actually okay, and they could all be thriving, minimally thriving, but they could all be thriving. And so it's a question of looking at how much do you actually need to cover all of your costs. You have the minimal that you need to cover your costs. Over the next 3 months, if you were to make no more than you're making now, or if you were to have no more income, would you be able to cover your costs and start in 3 months, start fresh? And that number will give you a clue as to whether it's appropriate to go into survival mode or if it's okay to be in living mode. Or you could actually be in thriving mode, which means you have extra time and energy to sing a song, draw something, compose some poetry, dance a dance, right? And these are the things that give quality to our life.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Ref. I've got another question here from Jeff. Jeff, I'm just going to unmute you so you can ask the question from Ref. And Jeff, you can ask your question.
I didn't really have a question. It was more of a statement. The scenario of the family sounded a bit like my family.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Very different numbers, and
Okay, cool.
In flight.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So it wasn't really a question. Pavinda, you had a question. I'm just going to unmute you, then you can ask your question. Okay. Just wait. There you go. Okay, Pavinda.
Yeah, situation all over is a scary one as of now, and earnings will get down everywhere. It's the only that our connect will help us to move ahead, and the next 3 months are quite tough, seems so. Finally,
Sure.
the best way is to understand one's own numbers rather than looking beyond. Is it so?
Okay. So yep. Did you get that, Ref?
It was a little warbled when it came in, so I missed that. What I got was the question.
So
maybe you can repeat that for me.
So basically, I think Pavinda was. Yep.
Situation a bit scary all over. And understanding oneself is one of the best ways to move ahead. Understanding one's own numbers and understanding the climate or atmosphere we are living in is one of the important factors as of now. Connecting with each other, having the support of each other. Social distancing is one of the things. Is it so?
Yes, Pravinder, I would say all of these are important factors. People are scared, people are nervous, people are insecure, and we're herd animals, and our mirror neurons, we all have mirror neurons, we're going to pick that up. So we're going to pick up other people's fears, other people's insecurities, other people's anxiety. And if we know ourselves, when we know ourselves, we know whether those fears are coming from inside of us or outside of us. See, if I suddenly start feeling fear, the first thing I do is I look around to see if I'm in actual danger. Is something trying to eat me? No. Am I going to die right now? No. So then I look inside and I ask myself, okay, am I afraid of anything that's coming from inside me? Am I the source of this fear? And if the answer is yes, then I know what to do about it because I'll know where it's coming from. But let's say the answer is no, this has happened to me. Then I can look around and I can realize that there's somebody standing a few feet away from me that is actually feeling fear. And my body picked it up, right? So then I can distance myself from that fear. I know how to cope with it. I'm not afraid, they're afraid. Now I either move away from them or I approach them to provide some form of support, right? Depending on where I'm at. So yes, knowing how other people are feeling is very important. I do read the news and scan the news quite a bit because I want to know how my herd, how my flock, how everybody else around me is doing. If people are freaked out, I need to know how to step up, to be of support or move out of the way so I don't add more problem. I know that I do this by knowing myself. I know myself because I'm aware, I put awareness into how I'm feeling and what's going on with me in my body. Is it level? Is it stable? Is it healthy? Is it strong? And in my mind, is it having good thoughts or is it having negative thoughts? Because my mind is is a mechanism. I'm not my mind. I have a mind. And sometimes my mind gets filled with nonsense thoughts, especially if I watch a lot of fear-based things. I start to think in a fearful way. So I can choose what I'm going to eat, my food for my body. I can also choose food for thought, right? And then if I know my numbers, I know that I may have to tighten the belt a little bit and cut down on some extra expenses, but I'll be okay for the next 3 months. Then I don't need to trigger a fear response because a fear response, my creativity when I'm in survival mode is different than when I'm in living mode or when I am in thriving mode. Same with my intuition. My intuition to get out of a dangerous situation is different than my intuition into how to make the best of abundance that's around me, right? So knowing if I'm in survival mode, living mode, or thriving mode physically is one thing. Knowing if I'm in survival mode, living mode, or thriving mode psychologically, and then knowing what people are doing around me, these are very, very valuable. It's valuable information. It's very important feedback for me then to know how to engage, what to do.
I've got a question. Like we're seeing now for the first time, it looks like, well, as far as I'm aware, especially in my generation anyway, I'm not sure if it's happened before. I would say it would have, but there seems to be almost like a global shift of consciousness. I don't know whether I'm just imagining this or whether it's part of my illusion or not, but there seems to be a real shift of consciousness for the people to actually start to break the fear that seems to be instilled in us from society right across the globe. And I'm actually looking at the current situation, and I'm certainly not saying in any way I truly feel sorry for anybody who's sick or anything like that. I'm not trying to diminish that, but what I am saying is that this situation is the first time that I've ever seen the entire planet, regardless of race, religion, border, all focused in one area, and there seems to be a movement from the people regarding fear. Is it possible, when we speak about these concepts of fear and working through living and thriving and surviving mode, is it possible that we could do that as a human species and actually go up a level at a crucial point in time like we seem to be right now?
Yes, I see that. I see that as the next step. As a scientist, as a biologist, I see us as a transition species. There are some species that are transition species. Think of the first fish that crawled out of the ocean, or the first animals that jumped out of trees and started flying. And our transition is transition in consciousness, because all of life is unconscious. And by that, life it's living, it's doing its thing. There's levels of awareness, but it's not conscious of itself. We humans are the ones that have the capacity to be conscious of our consciousness. Other creatures are conscious creatures, but they're not conscious of their consciousness. They're just simply conscious. The dog is aware, and that's why they make good guards, because they're aware if something's trying to get into your house. They're aware, and they're aware if somebody comes into their territory or not. But they're not aware that they're aware. They're not having this conversation. They're just simply aware. And we humans are starting having flashes of being not just aware of our awareness, but we want to be aware of the level of our awareness. When you're aware of the level of your awareness, you can start living in a way that allows that to start increasing and increasing and increasing. And our consciousness can rise. Now, there are certain things that help. For example, it's the fire alarm, the smoke, the heat, and the noise that wakes us up when the house is on fire. Otherwise, we just sleep through. The fact that our planet, our ecosystem is kind of on fire. Like we're overburdening our environment, and we're highly populated. We're very densely populated, and our footprint is quite big. And we're getting to a point where we're starting to stress our environment. All species go through this. And for us, it has to turn into a wake-up call where we have to raise our level of awareness and our consciousness so we can start living in a more balanced way. Because I see as a biologist, as a molecular biologist, I see that we're going to have more and more of these viral scares. These pandemics are going to happen more. It's going to become more of a routine thing. And we're going to have to learn how to quickly isolate and get out of the way. Just like if there's a fire, the fire brigade has to come and put the fire out. And we humans have to learn how to do this ourselves, because we're the ones that have to fit with existence. We're the ones that have to fit with reality. The universe has no need for us. We need the universe. We need to be in balance. We need to be living beautifully amongst ourselves and with other creatures. If not, we go the way of the dodo. We're the ones that are making a mess for other creatures. So it's really up to us. So what a great opportunity. Today, we have the intelligence, the resources, we have everything to be able to function and awaken to a higher consciousness. So people are popping up all around. It's natural. It's what we're supposed to be doing. It's the next step of our evolution. It's up to us to step up. And what a better way than to share using this amazing ability to communicate around the world. For me, I was at Angkor Wat on September 11th in 2001 when the world changed. And I watched the World Trade Center fall live on television. And for me, that was the first time the whole world was united. Because everywhere you went, people knew what was going on and people were helping. And it's been growing and growing. And now what an amazing opportunity. Once again, I agree with you. I feel badly for anyone that catches this flu virus and becomes ill or even worse, dies from it. But what an amazing opportunity to learn how to prevent this from getting worse, because it's gonna happen more often. And it's us. We're the ones that have to do this.
Yeah, you're quite right, Raf. You know, it's the one time that, you know, I've been coaching now for 15 years, and I coach across the globe, so many different people, and you know, people in Germany, in France, in Spain, the US, you know, just everywhere, even in New Zealand. I mean, even now in Australia, and we have the same collective problem. And I was actually saying to somebody today, you know, isn't it amazing how at one stage we thought that the world was a big place. And today we actually see how incredibly small it really is with what everything's going on. But, you know, a little bit earlier and, you know, a couple of days ago we caught up, and it was quite interesting. One of the things that you were talking about, definitely about raising the consciousness, but you said to me that it was more almost like a little bit of a reset in a way. You know, almost like we're resetting our minds, we're resetting our bodies. This is a bit of a reset for the world. Do you want to elaborate just a little bit more about that for everybody?
Sure. Well, just look at any smart device. I've got the smart device, and I need to do an update every once in a while. There's new firmware, then a new operating system comes. And the thing about our minds, our human minds, is that our human minds started thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. There's linguistic traces of our minds going back 30, 40, 50, maybe even 100,000 years. So what if the operating system that we're using, that we've been just bringing down, passing on through generation to generation, what if this is an operating system that is outdated for life today? How great would it be to be able to stop, reboot your mind, and then create a mind that allows you to thrive in all territories of life? And you can. This is what I do. I've learned how to do this for myself, and I help people create minds, bespoke minds that allow you to thrive in all areas of life that are interesting to you, in a body that's healthy, that feels good, that wakes up energized, ready to dance, play, work, fight if necessary, dance, whatever it is. And imagine being able to start with a blank mind, create a mind to resolve whatever issue you have, thrive, and then clear it up. Start fresh, clean the whiteboard, go to bed with a clear, empty mind, sleep really well, wake up the next morning, check in, this is what I need to do, and then start doing that. And then just keep doing that. And we can. We just need to get into the habit of stopping and rebooting our minds.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just going to open it up again. We only got about 8 minutes left. Is there anybody else that has got a question? Just let me know or unmute yourself, and we'll do it. If not, I'll keep asking Ref questions. As I said to you before, you know, I've been to Ref's place a number of times, and we spoke morning, afternoon, evening, nighttime. We spoke all day long. So, you know, there's just so much knowledge that Rafael has. It's just completely amazing.
I think it's fascinating. Honestly, there's obviously a lot of information on your website as well, mate, that people can get in touch with you, which I think is fantastic. I will certainly be downloading this program. I can guarantee you that. There's a good chance that you'll be seeing me in Thailand as soon as we can, because I love this. I absolutely, I feel like a little kid in a candy shop exploring this type of subject, because I truly believe, especially with today's world the way it is, that there is, I'm buying into everything that you say, because I genuinely feel like the world has shifted in a big way that I I don't think it can ever go back to the way it was. I think there's people around the world right now that their eyes are opening up, that they're starting to self-educate. They're starting to look at how to actually increase their own health without, pharmaceutical companies just driving in a consistent message that you need to medicate to be healthy. And I believe that everything that we know about how the world has been almost manipulated to forget who we genuinely are as creatures living on this earth together, that somehow we laid concrete on the ground and in 100 years we forgot everything, and all of a sudden now I just seem to go to work and sit in cubicles. And I believe that there is a big shift to go back to something, or the new phase, and that evolutionary state. So mate, I can only thank you very much for being here today. It's been an amazing call, and I know everybody on the line here has loved having you on here as well, sir. So thank you.
Well, thank you. My pleasure. And for me, the way I see it, we had a major shift happen about 40,000 years ago in many parts of the world when the last ice age came, and we had to go into survival mode. And the world went from being, sort of like the Garden of Eden. There's mango trees and bananas and fish in the streams. And then suddenly we have this almost like biblical flood of ice. Like there's parts of the world where there was ice a mile high, and we were isolated and we had to survive, and we had to take some extreme measures. And what I find in my mind when I go deep inside, and there's ways of meditating and there's tools for going deep inside, what I find are remnants of this prehistoric mind that was stuck in survival against this world that it has to fight against. And I've systematically pulled out all that programming because that's not the situation we're in today. Today we're in a very, very different situation, and which means I need a different mind to deal with the problems of today. And 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe 10 minutes from now, I'll need a different mind to deal with whatever comes next. So why not have the flexibility to change your mind and upgrade it for a better quality mind? You can. You just need to know that you can. And the only requirement that I need in order to do that is I need to know that I can stop it and reboot it. The moment you're present, right? You're awake. You're not like sleeping, but you're awake. You're relaxed. Your mind's off. You're just looking out through your eyes, hearing through your ears. That instant is all that's required to know that whatever is in your mind can be dropped and improved. And a lot of people just have never been conscious of that experience. And the crazy thing is that our mind is pausing hundreds of times a day without us knowing it. That's why I created this course, just to show people that our mind is a mechanism, and you can stop it, you can reboot it, you can update it. And while some people chose to go sit in caves, up in mountains somewhere and not turn on a mind again, I enjoy being a participant in life. So I need a mind that will help me thrive with whatever's happening.
And they say, what is the saying? That it makes an excellent servant, but a terrible master, the mind.
It sure does. And I'm going to one up on that. I've got a mind servant. It's a concierge. I got a butler up here. I got a concierge that can go out, self-educate, find whatever it needs to do.
Right.
And this is how I'm raising my child, my daughter. She's learning how to think in a way that allows her to update her mind. We all can do it. You just need to be aware of it. Because a lot of times we just do things because that's the way we've always done it, and that's the way everybody else does it. We don't stop to think about it until there's a crisis. Well, guess what? We've got a sort of a mini crisis happening, which is a nice practice for what could potentially be a much worse crisis. And I can see that happening. Not fear mongering. It's just that's just the way it is. We've had worse pandemics than this one, and we're probably going to get some new ones, and maybe even some man-made ones. So why not learn how to be strong, healthy, present, and self-educating, learning everything you need to do, and go from there. Thrive in all territories.
Absolutely.
I was born to thrive. I'm clear about that. I was born to thrive, and I'm sure everybody on this planet was too. So why not tap into that natural, innate ability we all have?
Yeah, absolutely. We all born to thrive. Absolutely. Raf, it's been so mind blowing again to have you, and it's such a pleasure to have you on the call, and to just to explain to people what I've experienced with you as well. Being able to stop my mind and reboot it and to put new apps in. So thank you very much. So everybody will actually, if you in the group, we'll drop the link into the group and everybody will get it. So please, if you're not part of the group yet, just find us in Facebook under Surviving Business, or just reach out to Shane or myself on Facebook. Now, there's one other thing that I want to talk about as well is that tomorrow morning, we're going to do this every single day, guys. Okay. Now, tomorrow morning, there's not a lot of time between Rafael coming on. We have another guest tomorrow morning. In the next 12 hours, like 12 hours from now, we're going to have a gentleman by the name of Dave Sanderson. And he was the last passenger off the plane that crashed into the Hudson River in New York. He's got an incredible story to be able to take us through what he went through. I saw this gentleman speak in New York 2 years ago. He's got such a big heart as well, and to give up his time to come and to help us through this period when everything is so uncertain is so generous of him as well as generous from Ref. So if you guys haven't registered for tomorrow, please register for tomorrow. It's going to be at 7:30 a.m. That's Sydney time, 6:30 a.m. unfortunately for Queensland time. But if you're not on, it's going to be a big one. It's very rare, and that somebody that has such a big speaking arrangement has got time to be able to afford to be able to give it. So we're talking about the collective nature of our business community. And again, this is a way that everybody's just getting their collective consciousness to raise our standards in a community in a way.
Honestly, Rafael, I really appreciate you being here today, my friend. I really appreciate it from everybody. We're getting great messages coming through from Jason Tabone and from Carolyn and Wendy Hora. And there's people there from all around Australia, all around the world, tapping in just to pick up some nuggets of wisdom. Just tell us one more time, please, buddy, where can they go to absolutely get and download the course on finding out exactly what their three modes are: survive, living, and thriving?
Oh, well, RafaelAisner.com.
Okay. And
it's myname.com, and there's a link there, and you just put in your information. And no, I will never spam you and send you anything other than just update when I add more free content.
Perfect. Thank you very much for being so open and honest and knowledgeable and sharing your wisdom here with us today. To everybody else that's on the call, we will see you early tomorrow morning, 6:30 in Queensland, 7:30 in New South Wales, as we do it again with my buddy Ivor Locke. Thank you, mate, for everything that you do. And mate, it was a great podcast here tonight again.
Yeah, absolutely, Shane. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ref. Thanks, Shane. Thank you, everybody, because, we can all make money, but we can never make our time back. So I'm just thank you to all of you for being able to make time to be able to educate yourself and to learn on how to thrive in this new world. So everybody have an amazing evening, and I wish you all the best.